We are talking about Almajiranci because it is a system that has become a problem. And in my opinion, and I believe that opinion is shared by many who have critically researched the system, it is a social problem, an economic problem, and a political problem. I believe it has more to do with these three factors than, as perceived by many, a misrepresentation of Islamic values and the religion's regard for education, as well as child and human rights. And to discuss this with me, I have here Abdulrahman Leme and Maryam Abdulmumin Augie, both of whom have really participated actively in finding new solutions to this problem. So please join me in welcoming them to the panel, please. I would like to also introduce Mr. Abdulaziz Abdulaziz, who is a journalist, and he has researched about the dangers of this problem. So please join me in welcoming him too. So first of all, I would like us to establish what is the Almajiranci system. Kabafest says it's a welfare system accepted in northern Nigeria. So Mr. Abdulaziz Abdulaziz, please, I would like to know, I would like you to elaborate for us. What is this system? Is it an educational system, or is it an economic relief system for parents who can cater for for the needs of their kids? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon, distinguished audience. That's really a hydra-headed question, and of course, it is not. There is no straight answer to it. You can't say that this is it. But maybe as a way of, as a prelude to the conversation, if you permit me, Mr. Moderator, I would want to read, to recite a poem which I wrote on, coincidentally, actually I didn't even know that I would be discussing Almajiranci in a forum like this. It was published last year in this anthology, and incidentally the two editors are in the room. They came in from Kano this morning, Dr. Saka Aliyu and Malam Ismail Bala. So I would want to read the poem and then elaborate a bit based on the wordings here.
Please go ahead.
So the title is In the Beginning. In the beginning were the word, the pen, and the slate. There was the decree to roam, not in search for forsaken morsel, in sagged shirts, over tattered shorts, from homes, hostels, and brothels, from the rich, the poor, and the bad. Rome, it is decreed, from sin in the polar east to the far-flung towns deep in the western pole. The search should be on for anything unknown. Wisdom, faith, health, and all, from the cradle till the last is breathed. In the beginning was the Word, and this was the Word. Thank you. So this is the poem, and I think as it tried to expose it is Almajiranci system is primarily about learning, and it has a long history in the Islamic culture, and more so to us in northern Nigeria, but of course even beyond northern Nigeria. But particularly, this was started with the migration of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, from Mecca to Medina, where because of the thirst for knowledge among the many new converts in Medina, the migrating Sahabas, that is companions of the Prophet, were engaged to teach these new converts the rudiments of the religion. And of course, there was also the hospitality, more like part of it, which is like reciprocating this gesture of teaching and learning, and the students, that is these new converts in Medina, were now taking care of these their guests as they are also teachers. But in northern Nigeria and parts of other West African states, this dates back to even prior to the Sokoto Jihad. Maybe like in modern day Nigeria, we could trace it to the Kanem-Borno Empire, and Even in places like Senegal, I have traveled in Senegal. If you go to places like Kaolack and Touba, you see this same issue that we are having now there as well. So it was started as a way of searching for knowledge, but then it's somehow transcended that to also become, for many people, for many parents, especially in modern day, a way of offsetting some of their burden, the burden of having to cater for these children by, by now sending them out to these schools, so that at least while they are also maybe in search of knowledge, they are also a burden away from them. So, and then it now become worse, especially with the problem of urban, when it become a transition from urban areas to, from rural areas to urban centers. So now, because in the past, maybe in say like 50, 100 years ago, it used to be a system where, yes, a local, I was telling Maryam last night that even my maternal grandparent went through the same process. He migrated to a village, and then the village head ceded a place for him where he established his house, his farms, and all his students were farming. They would farm what they would eat all year round, and to sustain their families. But then when it became a worse and modern problem, when they began rural-urban movement, because in the urban centers there is no system to support that, and it became a social problem.
Thank you for that. I believe to answer the question as to the Islamic perspective of this problem, how does Islam encourage in any way the abdication of parental responsibilities to whoever it is, whether it's a Malan or anybody else? Is it not the parents' responsibility to cater for these kids, or does Islam allow for parents to abdicate these responsibilities with the excuse that they are sending them out to learn Islamic education? So for this, please, I would like us to play a video. Hello? Okay, the video is not ready. Okay, we'll come back to that. So for moving on, I would like to touch on the human and ethical aspect of this problem. So for this, I would like to ask Maryam Abdulmumin. You've done so much research in this, on this problem. What do you think? Can you share with us the experiences of these children, the Almajiri within the system? How bad is it?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you once again for having me here. Based on our research, and like you said earlier, when we tried to find out the exact reason to why, like, I had a different perception as to what Almajiri was, I think, like everybody else, where you think these children are simply sent out onto the streets to beg simply because they can't afford to eat. But when we did our research and we interviewed 2 Malams across all the 19 northern states, and each and every one of them had the same answer, being that 1, they're brought in to seek knowledge, and the second, they're brought in for some kind of discipline, being that in the rural communities where they find themselves, they lack the Islamic knowledge and they lack the basic education which they would need. So basically, these kids are sent out to these schools to kind of form their characters, to kind of make them better human beings. Now, like he said, this system has been going on for generations and generations, and all of the Malams that I interviewed, 90% of them said that they had inherited this system going back 4 or 5 generations. But along the way, there's a total neglect. We found out that some schools had as high as 1,000 students. The lowest that we had was about 50 in the school. So how do you cater for 1,000? How do you cater for 50 people in this economy that we find ourselves in? So in the Almajiri system, there's something called a wardaiki. In Hausa, it means your madam, where you're basically meant to go out on a daily basis to work for that person. So when you work for that person, there are 2 options. It's either they pay you in cash or they pay you with food. Now remember, that food is only provided for you in the mornings or in the afternoon. But for you to be able to cater for yourself, you'll have to go out again and beg on the streets. These Malams don't have the ability to take care of these children or the funding to take care of these children, because these parents drop off their kids. And in the interview that we had with all of the malams, some go 2 years, 3 years without a parent coming to look for them, without even a single phone call to find out how are you doing. So whose responsibility is it to take care of those kids? You've abdicated your responsibility to a malam who does not have the resources to take care of your children.
Hello? Yeah, so I believe my question, what I would like you to elaborate more is on the experiences of these Almajiris. Because based on the statistics, the COVID-19 statistics in 2020 in Kaduna State, 50 out of 59 COVID-19 cases were traced to Almajiris that were brought from Kano, those ones that were repatriated from Kano. So that shows a high level of, unhygiene. I don't know, would you like to elaborate more on that?
Yes, from our findings, over 80% of the schools didn't have any wash programs. These children go days without, first of all, they can go days without eating, they can go days without having a bath, they can go days with nobody, there's nobody to cater for them. If you go to places, populated cities like Kano, Abdulaziz, I'm sure will attest to that, you see them on the streets, having to sleep on the streets. You find out that charity organizations that come up during the winter in December to kind of cater for these street kids and say, please, can we have sweaters for them? So it is a very, very inhumane situation that these children find themselves. You have sexual exploitation, right? You have physical exploitation in every way that you can think of. And there is nobody out there to say, okay, how are these kids fending? How are these kids doing? So it's a very, very inhumane situation that they find themselves in.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abdulrahman, would you care to share what your findings were as to the situation these Almajiris, the unfortunate situation these Almajiris find themselves? And I believe your program, ARC, At-Risk Children, encompasses even at-risk children that are not within the Almajiri system. So would you care to elaborate, please?
Yeah, so based on your question, like you rightly pointed out, we have been working a lot on this issue. For me, for the past 3 years, I've been involved in this field. And I can tell you, I can confirm to you that when the Almajiris were repatriated during the COVID-19 pandemic, that as actually was the single political decision that encouraged our program. Because we realized that these children are being shipped around without any proper care, and some states actually have gone to take their data. But some of them, as I speak to you, some of them have gone back to those states. So based on my experience, the situation needs serious intervention. And this intervention is not an intervention that is just going to be left out in the hands of the CSOs or development partners. There is a need for a deliberate government policy that would address this situation. So you have different categories of children out there, the Almajiri being one aspect of it. So UNICEF described this, categorized them into 3 categories. So you have street living children, you have children in street situation, and then you have family street situation children. So the first aspect of this categorization by UNICEF is the one that concerns the Almajiris. They usually are on the street. They are street walking. They describe themselves as street walking children, and they come to the urban centers in search of knowledge. That's what they come out to do. And during that period that they come, they are involved in different activities, which exposes them to different danger, which is, like Maryam mentioned, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and then it makes them susceptible to join all sorts of criminal groups. So it exposes them to all sorts of danger. So in summary, or in essence, their situation is in dire need of intervention. And as I said earlier, the intervention should not be left in the hands of private organization or development partners. This has to be a deliberate effort by the government to intervene. When we get to the solution aspect, I'll talk about the program more, because that's where
All right, thank you. So you mentioned that the government really needs to intervene on a large scale. But I believe I speak for the Christian population, majority of the Christian population. A lot of people would like to know why. Why does the government always have to intervene in problems that, you know, are just strictly like Islamic related, or they are Ariwa problems? Because if you're asking the government to invest heavily in securing or, you know, in helping the situation of these Almajiris, and the Almajiranci system is an Islamic education system, as he elaborated. So would the federal government not have to come in as well for the Christian faith?
Okay, that's a good question and an interesting one. So let's go back to the political angle of this issue. Over the years, whether it is pre-colonial or post-colonial era in Nigeria, right, there have been different forms of structures to address the issue of education in northern Nigeria. You're talking about education in northern Nigeria, and whether it is Christian or Muslims. And I would like to just speak from the post-colonial era. When the late premier of northern Nigeria, Ahmadu Bello, emerges, he had campaigned during the 1959 campaign that he is going to set up like some kind of committee to address the issues of education, including increase of funding into the Quranic schools, right? So that is one. Secondly, he did not live long to see this motion that he has set in place to come to be. And in 1960s, there was a coup, right? So after that, one of the major things that happened from 1966 to, between 1960s, from 1960 to date, when we have the Civil War ended in 1970s, Nigeria devolved powers for education to the state governors. It has become the sole responsibility of the state government, which means the state government are at the liberty to determine the kind of policies that they can come up with to address issues around education. Now, the Almajiris in northern Nigeria, the system is an Islamic system, or it can be called Islamic system, but
it is an Islamic system.
Yeah, but it's more complicated than that, because you have people arguing.
No, it's not. It's actually an Islamic system from history and even what it is now.
No, wait, let me land. So at the end of the day, what I'm driving at is this: the devolution of powers to state government to take care of the issues of education. Let me land. I'm getting somewhere. Don't stop me. Right? Gives the governors to come up with initiatives to address the system, which Almajiri constitutes a very large part of that. So to address your question of whether or not the government, federal government is coming at the top level as a coordinating system, but the governors can take responsibility and the leadership and the initiative to come up with ideas. And these ideas include addressing these Almajiri issues. And I told you earlier that the Almajiri has formed an umbrella where a lot of children who are not part of the system, you understand, including some Christian population in some part of the state, that are actually benefiting or using that system to survive. Because it's all now, it has become a survival issue.
Sorry, I've just been informed that the video is ready. So please, I would like to take us back to like the religious perspective of this problem. So does Islam encourage the abdication of parental responsibilities to whoever? And does Islam's encouragement of charity permit Muslims to engage in begging as an occupation? So please, for that, we are going to play a video from Pen Abdul to address these questions. Thank you.
Parenting is a sacred responsibility enshrined in the Sharia. So whether it is permissible for a father to abdicate from his responsibilities and then allow his children to roam the street and take them to a non-functional system of Almajiri, where they become nuisance in the society, whether it is permissible or not, from Islamic point of view. Now, it is clear that that is not permissible. Because parenting is a sacred responsibility. Primarily, Allah states in the Quran, "Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum." Yani, ward yourselves off and your families from the fire of hell. So it's the responsibility of the parent to ensure that his family is intact. Again, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyyatihi." And then he said, "Wal-rajulu ra'in an ahli baytihi wa huwa mas'ulun an ra'iyyatihi." That each and every one of us, of you, is a shepherd and is responsible for his flock, will be asked with respect to his flock. A man is a shepherd over his family, and then he will be asked with regards to his family. So it is the responsibility of the parent to ensure that financially, spiritually, socially, yani, everything that a child needs that will mold him to becoming a better person in the society, such that it contributes positively to the society, is the responsibility of the father. Now we have a system where people give birth to children without recourse to how to raise these children, and then they send these children out there because they have a system that allows that. Though a non-functional system that allows that, they have a Almajiri system where their children are absorbed in the name of seeking for Islamic education, and then they end up being beggars. And now that takes us to the second question of whether the encouragement found in Islam with respect to charity is what is responsible of for breeding a lot of beggars. No. Naturally, people are not created equally. Financially, we are not on the same status. There are people that are at the extreme end of poverty, and then there are people that are at the middle cadre, and then there are people that are wealthy. So to create that system, a financially balanced system, Islam now encourages charity, that the wealthy ones should give to the poor. But again, the poor have been warned also that it is not for every poor person to beg. It is for certain categories of people, three, which the Prophet ﷺ has made mention of. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited begging, that it is prohibited, it is not permissible for a wealthy person to beg, for a strong person to beg, for a healthy individual to beg, which means you have to use your health, your strength, to produce something, or to give a service that will earn you a living. So instead of begging, go out there and then add to the economy of the society that you're living in. And then in another direction, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever begs to accumulate wealth is only begging a live corn. But again, there are people that begging has been allowed for. Three categories of people, as the Prophet ﷺ stated in the narration. Someone that has incurred a debt, is insolvent. He has incurred a debt primarily to settle between two people, or for whatever reason he has, and then he is not able to pay back that debt, is insolvent. It is allowed for such a person to beg until he's able to pay that debt off, and then it is prohibited for him to beg afterwards. The second person is the one who has been stricken by a financial calamity such that he lost all his wealth. Maybe he was wealthy and then now he has some financial challenges. He's been stricken by financial calamity and now is poor. Such a person is allowed to beg until he gets himself back on his footing. And then the third person is someone that has been stricken by extreme poverty such that three people of wisdom in his locality attest to his poverty, that he is a destitute. Such a person is allowed to beg, and then once he has enough that will take care of him, then he should desist from begging. So I don't see where begging has become something that is sort of sin as being consistent with Islam. No, it is not consistent with Islam, but Islam discourages it. So I think we need to push this out for people to understand that learning is encouraged, but you don't push your children out there to learn in an environment where they will not be taken care of and then they end up begging. When the mother of Anas bin Malik sent Anas to the household of the Prophet ﷺ, she knew that Anas was going to get something better. She knew that he was going to be molded, in terms of his character, in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his social interaction with people. So she knew Anas was going to a better place. But you're taking your child to someone that does not have anything to provide
this is quite
other than diluted knowledge.
If it was us that said this now, they would say, who are they? We are not in place. They would have had our heads. I'm going to come back to that question. You're not free yet. But for now, I want to move on to the social cultural aspect of this problem. During the 2015 campaign, the First Lady at that time, Dame Patience Jonathan, allegedly said that the Northerners, we give birth to children we cannot count. So this leads me to ask this question, and I want you to respond, Ms. Maryam. Why do poor Northerners engage excessively in polygamy, practice polygamy? They marry 4 wives and give birth to 20 children, each one wife, 5 kids, and they are well aware that they cannot take care of these kids. Of course, even if you have an incentive to induce the Almajiri system to cater for these kids, eventually, if you keep getting these numbers, it's going to crash. So why is it in our culture to do this? Why are we not talking about birth control, things like that, in order to curtail the problem?
I think first things first, when you look at it, generally in everything that we do as Northerners, you find that culture and religion is intertwined to the point where even us that are well educated, you find that sometimes you don't even know where the boundary is of culture and religion. So even in the interpretation that some of these parents have, there's a saying that bakasandan da zai kawo ma albarka, but meaning you don't know which of the children would be a blessing to you. So at the end of the day, they don't see having children as a problem, right? They are of the belief that one way or the other, God will provide for them to take care of these children, and they do not know who amongst these children would be a blessing to them. So until there is, like he said, a focused strategy where you're changing it all about the mindset. This thing cuts across, don't even say the poor. It doesn't occur only with the poor. You would find a well-educated man today with over 40 children. You don't know tomorrow, right? And you give them the basics, even in taking care of these children and ensuring that they have the basic discipline or the basic mentality you can't with 40 children. So I think it all boils down to where the culture and religion, where the line of culture and religion is, and how we can try as much as possible to see how we can change the mindset, where we can change the mindset of people to say that, okay, listen, it is your responsibility to take care of your child to a certain extent. It is not just financial. It is not just financial. It boils down to everything that child will become, and the function of that child in that society boils down to what you give him at the foundation. As a man, you have 40 children. What time do you have when you're in your ages of 30, 40, 50, where you're actually out there and looking for money and having the responsibility to actually train these kids? And you now give them, most of the training is now done by the mothers, who are sometimes overwhelmed. Right? And there's a certain level to which mothers, we are the ones that are always, when it comes to discipline, not all mothers are, the men are the ones who tend to be the ones who are strict and to ensure that, so I think it all boils down to the line between culture and religion.
Thank you very much. So we should keep getting. I'm appalled. So we should keep giving birth until we find that one that would be a blessing. No, sorry, it's a rhetorical question. So, so all the other ones that are failed, they now become a danger to the society, all in search of one. Oh my God. And this brings me to the dangers of this system. And I know Mr. Abdulaziz here has done a couple of research on, he has done a documentary also on banditry and I think insecurity in northern Nigeria. And he has asked some of these bandits as to how they recruit these, they get recruitment and what keeps the system going. So I would like you to elaborate on the danger, because critics of this system believe that this Almajiranci system provides the bandits, the Boko Haram gangs, and and the rest of it. It provides them with an ample supply of young, vulnerable youths to recruit. So please, can you care to expatiate on that?
Okay, thank you very much. For me, to quickly go over it, I feel just like what Maryam was trying to say. Of course, maybe at the base, let me first address your question. It's a problem, no doubt about it. And if somebody is set free, sent loose on the street, you can't guarantee what happens to that child. Whether, as some Almajiri actually do, maybe he ends up, as indicated in my poem, go to brothels and be running errands. That is quite contradictory. Somebody who is trained to be a malam ends up in a bar or brothels running errands, and or he ends up with pickpockets, or if he's lucky, he ends up as a porter in the market, and perhaps one or two of them, like I know a couple in Kano, for example, who got blessed, as Maryam was saying, to grow into rich businessmen in Kano. But all these are probabilities, so nobody is certain. But the main problem is, I think, if we go back to that issue of responsibility, as the Malam has explained in the video played, the main and the first responsibility, at the first issue, at the root of all this, is responsibility and upholding it or abusing it. So if Islam that encourages people or discourages people from even getting married if they are not financially stable, certainly will not encourage you having kids if you are not financially capable of keeping them. In fact, even interclass, excuse me, I'm coming back to what you said, but these are fundamentals. Even interclass marriage, for example, if you can't afford a lady whose father is a rich man, that she is used to luxuries in her home, you are not permitted to, marry her and bring her to squalor. You are expected, yes, because that standard is expected. You are expected to maintain that. So therefore, children are trust that Allah placed in parents. But then, if you would allow them to go out and to be street kids, they get recruited into all manner of sinister groups. But then, I agree with Maryam that actually turning this around has to be holistic. It's beyond class. And that is one mistake that some of our elites are making. You shouldn't think because you are an emir or a lawmaker, you have money, you can just irresponsibly keep fathering kids endlessly.
What I believe the audience would like to know is, do you have, during the course of your investigation, did you find that these criminal gangs get their recruits from this system? Because I also wonder, every time we conclude Friday prayers and I see these mob of Almajiris, I just wonder, what are they going to be in the future? Because for now, all they know is begging. And now, of course, that cannot be sustainable up to, when they grow up to 18, 20. So is there evidence to suggest that these criminal gangs are recruiting from this Almajiri system?
Well, I will have to disappoint you, Mustapha, because it's like you have something of I'm sorry to say, like preconceived, trying to pose the discussion in a way.
I'm just trying to find...
I'm sorry to say this. As I said, I have said it earlier, all manner of people recruit from this because they are street kids. We have billionaires in Kano who were Almajiri, who came to Kano as Almajiri, but they are today billionaires. I'm not trying to, it's a bad thing, of course, because the majority actually go the other way. So, as I said earlier, all manner of people recruit from this. And let me talk to you from my experience of evidence that you said. The researches, I have been to 2 bandit gangs all in Zamfara State. I have interacted with, a lot of them. And from my own findings, I wouldn't say these are Almajiri. The only one person that I found is one Malam Ila, who had studied as an Almajiri in Zaria, but now a warlord, and still also like a Malam. That's even why he's called Malam Ila. He's still teaching, but of course he's a gang leader with his guns and RPGs in the bushes of Zamfara. But these are people, and that is why I say, even if you have the means, there is no justification
Abdulaziz,
because
do they or do they not recruit from this system?
I cannot answer because, as I said, it's only one person that I can
I
say.
come in?
Thank you very much. So I would like to take us back to the political aspect, and that I would like to repeat that question to you.
Bring it on.
Why should we invest in an Islamic system of education? Because I believe even in the basic, the LEA, there is something like an IRS and a CRS. So why can't the Almajiri kids just go to the LEA and learn IRS? Why do we have to give the Almajiri schools money and then abandon the Christian faith?
I think you are mixing 2 things here, Terry. Right? Anybody that is elected as a leader or as a governor of any state, you are expected to shoulder some responsibilities. And these responsibilities cut across different ethnic groups and religion groups, right? When you find a situation, we have a problem, right? We have said the Almajiri system is not working the way it should, right? And as a leader, you are expected to find solution, right? Yeah, there will be a lot of. Have you ever seen any time where there is a situation in Nigeria where each group will not say, oh, we are being marginalized? But that doesn't mean you should throw the baby in the water. As the governor of a state, you are duty bound to find solution, whether it is Islamic or it is Christianity or even pagans, right? This issue, we are on a particular issue of the Almajiri issue, and that's why I was saying that it is on the shoulders of our leaders, and that's why we should elect people who are prepared for leadership, who are prepared for these challenges, right? So you shouldn't pander to people saying, why are you investing? They are citizens of the country first, and they are indigenous to wherever they are in the state. And as a state governor, you cannot just come and say, okay, because I don't want to offend this, but I will not take a stand. That was the point I was trying to make.
Thank you. So, still on the political aspect of this problem, Ms. Maryam, I believe it's the belief of many of us here that the North leverages on these numbers of these kids that we just keep giving birth to, and most of them end up in the Almajiranci system. How reliant is the northern political elite on these numbers? And is that driving the problem and inflating the number of Almajiris? Because these northern political elite, in a way, kind of support this system financially and politically, because it has there's a way that that comes back to them in terms of numbers of votes.
Before I get to the political aspect, let me get to it as a society. When we did our poll and we asked them, what is your number 1 means of income? Each and every one of them said sadaqah. Sadaqah meaning the money that they give to them. Yes, it's called the prayer economy. There's an entire topic on it. It's called a prayer economy. And we asked them, each and every one of them, even the one in Adamawa, I'll never forget him. He studied computer engineering. He's an IT technician. But he's an Almajiri teacher. Why? Because it backdates how many generations. His father owned the school, his grandfather owned the school, his great-grandfather owned the school. And from our findings, what we found is that there are different levels of these schools. You have the Harvard level of the school, you have the federal government level of the school, you have the local government level of the school. So everybody goes to kind of seek knowledge depending on. So coming back to the societal problem and the political problem that you're saying. each and every one of them, their number one means of income is sadaqah. What does sadaqah mean? There's some people today that completely rely on malams for each and every prayer that they do. They don't even pray themselves because they have a malam that does it for them. A politician today or a rich man can afford to give malam 10 million or 20 million and say, take, pray for me. Your megad and your driver can afford to give malam 2,000, 3,000, malam will still collect it. So who is fueling that society? We are fueling that society.
Thank you very much.
So, and until we face that reality.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I would like us now to go into the solution aspect. And let me start with you, Mr. Abdulrahman. Can you care to share with us?
Sorry.
What is?
Hello. 5 minutes left, so we're counting down.
Okay. Yes. So, can you care to share with us? Hello, Mr. Abdulrahman. Can you care to share with us what does your program entail? Because I know that you are pursuing an approach to the solution to this problem. So, what does your program entail? What are your successes and what are your challenges? Briefly, please.
Thank you. So, the program we are currently working on now is called the At-Risk Children Program. And this At-Risk Children Program does not only cover Almajiri, coming back to your other question right previously. So it covers all children at risk. Of course, when you come to the northern part of this country, the Almajiris constitute a large number of these children who are at risk, right? So we are coming from, the program is being coordinated by the Office of the Special Advisor to the President on Social Investment under the Office of the Vice President. And it's being supported by development partners, majorly UNICEF, UNDP, AFDB, and a whole lot of development partners. And what we intend to do is to leverage on the reach and the connections from the federal level to bring, to provide resources into this, to the states where we are operating. We are operating in about 5 states now. And what we intend to do is to provide some kind of relief for these children. You know, you cannot just take a child off the street and throw him into a conventional school, somebody who has never been into the 4 walls of classroom. So what we intend to do is to take them and put them into a transitional phase where we introduce basic literacy and numeracy to them, digital skills, agriculture. We operate on 7 pillars. There's agriculture, there is health and nutrition. Because when you talk about education, there's other factors that ensures that a child remains in school. And these are all other pillars that we're working on. So apart from literacy and numeracy, is the child healthy enough? Is the child, does he have access to good food for nutrition? You know, and it's not all of them, especially those that have gone through these Zangaya schools. Some of them have, you know, have gotten to a certain age where they cannot, you know, remain in school, and that's why we're introducing the vocation. So in summary, what we are doing is to give them another alternative before those within school ages can be sent back to school. And those who have actually outgrown that stage can now be taught some skills, life skills and vocation.
Thank you very much. I would like to throw the same question to you, Ms. Maryam.
So for us, what we have done is...
Sorry,
For us,
Mrs.
what we have done is almost the same thing. We have the transitional program, which is the basic literacy and the numeracy program. But what we also tried to do when we were talking to the Malams is to see, okay, would you allow some of the school children actually attend conventional schools? And all of them, and what we found was very impressive, 98% of them were very optimistic as to these children having basic literacy and numeracy and actually attending school. Some of the Malams even said to us, I'll say it in Hausa and translate, actually said to us, meaning that if we do not actually provide these children with the basic literacy and numeracy, we are actually making them at risk and actually not giving them their full potential that they. So what we did is to introduce the basic literacy and numeracy in some of the schools. And some of the schools, what we did in Kano State alone, we have over 40 children in conventional schools. So we approached private schools and said to them, okay, can we have a particular classroom for just these Almajiri kids? So each classroom, what we did is we have 20 children in each classroom, only for the Almajiri, so they're not together with other conventional kids, so they're being taught at their own pace. As we talk now, they're being promoted onto the next class. And it would amaze you that over 70% of them are doing exceptionally well. You can see the joy and you can see the happiness in knowing that they have that opportunity to actually make their lives better. So
thank you very much, thank you. At this point, I would like to open the Q&A session. The gentleman with the book over there.
Good day, my name is Najibullah Nakaka. I would like to answer, to attempt to do two questions you asked Malam Abdulaziz and the other one.
Sorry, because of time, one question please.
Okay,
quickly.
One question. Let me attend the question with the Malam there. What I suggest is, government is an institution built by the people to manage the people. If we can have advisors on religious matters, why can't the government use the money claimed to be that of the people to manage the affairs of the people? Do you get it? What I said is that the government should intervene in this and find a solution to it. If you talk about religion, if the government does that for the Islamic part, I suggest the government should do the same to the missionary part for the Christians. The money is for the people, so why not to intervene like what Goodluck Ebele did to find a solution to our problems?
Thank you for your contribution.
In regards to the same question, is when we look at education from the past, monasteries came with the education that we all see, but when we talk about Islam didn't come with English numbers and all that. So when we look at 10 million kids out of school in northern Nigeria, we see that it's almost regional. And for you to say government shouldn't cater for that, it can't. I don't see how that's possible, because we have the highest amounts in northern Nigeria. And when you say education, you talk about Nigeria is a certificate-based nation. So if you don't teach these children English and all these things, and it's only government that can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll take two more questions, please. Questions, not contributions, please.
Good day, everyone. I'm Chinedu. My question is: everybody keeps saying the government should. My question is: why should they?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Last one.
So a year or two ago, I did a research and wrote about the alternative ways that the Malams themselves are trying to, circumvent this issue of having stray children who do not have access to conventional education. And what I saw was that there was a particular Malam in North Central Nigeria, particularly in Niger State, who was trying to infuse Western education into the Almajiranci system that he was administering. I don't really know very much about Miss Maryam and Mr. Abdulrahman's programs, but from what I've heard so far, it's more like the conventional education part is being treated as a different entity that is set apart from the Almajiranci system that you're doing. I'm wondering, have you considered, is it something doable that perhaps both systems of education can be merged together so that we can, because what I think happens...
Thank you very much. That does it.
Okay.
So I think the first question, or was it a contribution, was for you. So would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I think the gentleman literally agreed with what I said finally on the issue that it is the responsibility of the government to find solution, and which also answers the question of Chinelo. Why should they? Why shouldn't they? They are the government. We elected them to find a solution. So they are expected to find
Thank you very much. would you want to attempt her question, please?
I think with what she's saying is basically what we're doing. The literacy program is infused within the Almajiri system itself. So they basically give us time slots in which these children have the basic literacy and the numeracy. But then there are two sides to it. It's either you decide to do the basic literacy and numeracy within the confines of your Almajiri school, or you actually go through the conventional schooling system where you go to school every day, come back, and then carry on with your Islamic yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abdulaziz, would you like to attempt her question? Because I know that you were keen, you wanted to contribute earlier on.
Well, I think the government really should do something, but it's a collective problem because I feel the government cannot continue to, I think it's a terminal solution that we need, because the government cannot continue to subsidize the penile irresponsibility of some people. If people are so reckless that they are, they should be made, because it's also the teaching of Islam. Every parent should take responsibility of his or her kids, because you cannot continue to subsidize this. One, secondly, it is also an issue that is going to continue drag us down, drag us back.
Thank you very much.
So we should have to terminate it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abdulrahman, can you respond to Hawa Shafi's question?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, what we are trying to do is that we are providing them the basics outside these conventional schools. Because let's face it, if you ask UBEC today to take care of these 10 million children and put them back into the conventional schools with the existing structure, it will just collapse completely. So what we are trying to do is to give them this alternative window for them to abreast themselves of what it is to learn in the conventional schools. So we categorize them into two, literally. So if you have those that are within the school age, by the time we are done with our program, we now send them back to the existing schools. And we are talking about reviewing the curriculum. There are already existing government programs working with the World Bank. There is BESDA. There is a program that UBEC is already running around literacy, around seeing how we can infuse this Islamic education into our conventional schools. So it's already an ongoing conversation, and we are also part of it.
All right, thank you very much. I think with this, they've given us so much extra time. So with this, we've come to the end of the... Okay, we have 3 minutes more. I would allow that question. Quickly, please. Quickly.
So I want to ask Abdulaziz, as a journalist, I caught you. Now you say that you have the opportunity to meet some of these bandits, leaders in Zamfara. So I understand that the responsibility of solving insecurity problems does not entitle only to government, rather it's a collective responsibility. So what are journalists doing in giving solutions to part of
Thank you very much.
This problem of insecurity?
Thank you very much.
much.
So with that, please, you respond to that and then you give us your closing remark, please.
Okay, actually I was hoping that this session will not be turned like what happened in 2019, where when I came for Kabafest, people were asking me about Kemi Adeoshun instead of about the panel I was in. So actually, that's what we are doing, exactly, because our responsibility is to report, to bring out things, to go deep and bring out things that will help the government in its search for solution, if it cares to listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Maryam, can you give us a closing remark? Go ahead.
It is a collective responsibility that we all have. Like they've been saying with regards to the government, basic literacy, basic education is the responsibility of state and local governments, right? So if there's a policy at the federal level, that the state governments will now have to make sure that it's inculcated down into the Almajiri system. We are faced with a time bomb. We keep saying time bomb, time bomb, time bomb. The reality is that the bomb has already exploded, we're right in it. And if we do not tackle these problems holistically together, then we don't know what the next 10, 20 years will be for us. So yes, non-state actors, in as much as what we are doing is important, there is little we can achieve without the intervention of government and the help of government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdulrahman, quickly.
Thank you. Well, my closer remark would be, like, there's an observation I wanted to make earlier, because as somebody who is working on this, let me say this, to the best of my knowledge, there is no data that has established any direct link between the Almajiri system and these terrorists. There is no any existing data from what I have seen. And finally, the responsibility, of course, we keep on saying government, because government is meant to provide direction, right? If, as an irresponsible father, you are abdicating your responsibility, it is still the government that will come and tell you, no, this is enough. So it's a collective responsibility, but the government has to come up with the solution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. With that, we've come to the end. Thank you very much for your time.